his own karma. And you might say, well, what does looking at a beach that's made up of 1 billion grains of sand have to do with karma? And it has this, is that each grain of sand from a point of view, where it is the world, is made up of its own character. It has its own element. Our mind is always looking at this creation here as if it is one thing. Like it's just one reality. Everybody has the same reality. We're all sharing the same world. And depending on who you talk to, they have it all figured out. They think. But each one of us is just a little grain of sand in a much larger beach. We each have our own viewpoint. We have our point of view that gives us a description of the world to ourselves. And this description comes about, and in fact, the entire beach and everything comes about as a result of karma. Everything is karma. Everything. Every action, everything is karma. We say there's good karma and there's bad karma, depending on how pleasurable or how fun it is or how miserable it is. But in reality, it's just karma. We blame the world that we exist in on some God or some Satan or something outside of us. We like to think that we're victims, because when we're victims, we don't have to take responsibility. In truth, there are no victims. If you believe in victims, then you believe in duality. You believe there's something out there doing something to you and to other people that's not correct. And from an advanced Buddhist point of view, that's insanity. We are all created in the image and likeness of God, of the Creator. We all have an impulse to create a view of creation. I have said many times that our purpose on this earth is to live life. How we live it creates karma, which creates our experience of it. You go into a nice restaurant. Maybe it's like 10 o'clock in the morning. I had this happen to me recently, or a few years ago. This lady was buying me breakfast, wanted to talk to me about her life. So we went into this fine restaurant at the Mirage Hotel in Las Vegas. Very nice room. But it was like 10 in the morning. There's hardly anybody in there. It was a weekday. As we sat down, I looked at this incredible room. Beautiful lights, nice silverware, everything's very impeccably done. And I looked over to my right and I see an old man eating by himself. He's sitting in a wheelchair, pulled up to the table, and he's eating by himself. I look over to my left and there's a family over there kind of away from everybody. That's where they put them, because they had 3 small kids. And the kids were always trying to get up and do things, and the parents were corralling them in and trying to teach them manners and trying to teach them how to behave in public. That's interesting. I looked a little bit behind me, and there was this couple, probably in their early 50s, who were eating, and they were just looking down like that as they were eating. And I looked across over there, and there's this couple who were obviously, if they weren't married and on their honeymoon, they should be, because they were just all over each other. And in front of me is this lady telling me all of her problems. It was the same restaurant, but I can assure you everybody had a different view, a different take, a different feeling, a different karma. The old man was dying alone, having breakfast alone at the end of his life. Couple with their children were frantically trying to corral those kids, trying not to embarrass everybody, trying to have a nice meal on a vacation. Couple behind me had just lost their savings. Their savings was all gone. They gambled it away. And now they're having breakfast. What next? Look across the room at the young couple who are in love. Wow. Every one of those people had a completely different view of that very same room. They had a different take on how it felt, on how it looked, and on the service of everything because of the attitudes and the circumstances that they were in while they were in the room. The room itself did not create their experience, although it added an ambiance, but what created their experience was their experience of life itself. And we say, oh, that's interesting. And I say, yes, it is, because we live in a world of 7 billion people, and every person here has a different view of this creation, of this world. They all have a different view. None of them see it like you do. They may agree with you on almost everything, but there are certain parts that they're just not going to agree with. I have dear friends. We agree on 99%, but there's always that 1%. It comes up every once in a while. Kind of. But love takes us through it. Love takes you through everything, actually. So as you look at the world, you see all this chaos. You see all the troubles. You see people being mean to each other. You see people suffering. People dying, being killed. And we want to make people a victim. We want to make a country a victim. We want to make little babies a victim. But it's all karma. Now this is a tough one to take because we don't want the little baby who's dying of cancer to say that's its karma. And we don't want to say it's the parents who are watching this baby die, that it's their karma. And we don't want to say it's the doctor's karma to be trying to work with this and do something to alleviate the pain and to maybe even somehow miraculously find a cure. We want to say that those people are victims. But in Buddhism, as I said, there are no victims. It's all karma. And where we get into the idea of something being truly unjust, it's because we don't see it completely. Earlier in my life, I was a school teacher. I taught basically every grade from kindergarten up through high school at one time or another. I was a substitute teacher for a year. That's how I did that. But mainly I focused on elementary. I taught 2nd grade, 4th grade, 7th grade. So I really relate to children. I relate to teenagers. I relate to the new generation that's coming up. So when Sandy Hook happened, I had an issue, a big, big issue. These were little babies, really, being mowed down in their classroom. And I was outraged. I was incensed. How could this be? And I removed myself because I knew that I couldn't be around people until I had doped this out. So I meditated and I meditated, and finally they had pictures of the children. I pulled each picture of the child up, meditated on it, and I saw a surprising thing. It was pretty amazing, actually. I saw a group of monks, mostly from Tibet, that had incarnated to be killed in that manner to make a statement. Now, this sounds kind of weird, but if you're my age, you go back to Vietnam, we saw monks burning themselves to stop a war. So this is not unusual. It also was the karma of their parents to have children that would die that way. Why? Did they do something terrible? No. It was something to motivate them to do something about an issue that was plaguing the consciousness of the world. These were high souls. All of them were high souls. And they were fulfilling a karma. These parents would never again support assault weapons. In fact, they would spend the rest of their life trying to get rid of them. The children that got killed, their death was like that, they're in the next one. We want to make people victims, but they're not. You say, well, what about the unborn? Are we going to be killing these unborn babies? I said, no. If it's the karma to be aborted in your 9th month, it's also the parents' karma. It's everybody's karma. There's a reason why they were pulled together in that moment for that event. Now, there are things that happen that are terrible. Murders, muggings, people cheating each other out of life savings. There's all kinds of things that are going on in this interesting world as the shifts of the beach shift around with every wave, with every force. But we have to get past this idea of victims. And the only way you can do it is go through a multi-incarnational view to see how lifetime after lifetime has led up to this very moment right now. Everything in all of eternity, through all of your history, has brought you to this moment. And now we're at this moment. And now we're at this moment. And what we do with that is what we do with it. It doesn't seem fair sometimes. The old man sitting in that restaurant was alone. The couple behind me just lost all of their savings. I didn't ask them, I just saw it. Why did they lose their savings? Because it was their karma to accumulate and to lose. It could be your karma to stop something from happening. That doesn't make you a hero, but it makes you a person of Dharma. Buddha says we're here to get rid of ignorance, to alleviate suffering, to do the right thing. That's what we're to do. I was raised a Christian, and I was taught as a child that Christ came to the world to die for our sins. And by believing in that, we would be saved, and that was the gospel. That was the good news. So the good news was that Jesus came to die for our sins, or our karmas. And then, just when I was an adult, I had an epiphany. I was reading the Bible, and it said Jesus was walking around preaching the gospel. I go, wait a minute. He didn't go around saying, I'm going to die for your sins. What was this gospel thing he was talking about? What was the good news? So then I started looking at what he was teaching. And what he was teaching was the Dharma. He was teaching to turn the other cheek, to be the peacemaker, to, if someone asks for your coat, give them your shirt too, to be selfless in all of your ways, to help the poor, to help the sick, to do selflessly all of everything. Everything for God. That's the good news, because if you do that, you're getting out of the samsaric patterns that cause suffering, and you start doing the things that Buddha said to do, which was to alleviate suffering, to bind up the wounds, to heal. And by doing that, you create new karmas that affect you and everyone around you. So we can go around being angry and really pissed off, and we will attract that energy to us because that's the karma. We can be self-righteous, and we'll attract self-righteous people around us. So now that I've taken your victim away, it's kind of a hard pill to take, because we live our whole life as a victim. We've always made excuses. We've never accepted the responsibility. And it's a tough one to kind of wrap your head around. It's tough when you see an animal abandoned and suffering. And you say, well, how can this be karma? Who am I to judge? But what can I do? If it bothers me, then I should help that animal. To not do that creates a karma. To help creates a karma. And I can hear it, but you don't understand. They were just children. I know. I also know that they're more than just this lifetime. That there's more into play here than any of us could imagine. In a world of increasing violence, and in a world that's going in a direction of even more violence and more conflict, where nations are actually doing things to cause us to put things on in our media and our broadcasts that cause us to hate somebody else that doesn't have our point of view, to assault them, to insult them. These are terrible things. They create terrible karmas. And then in the midst of this carnage, in the midst of this, we see these young people standing up. There's an energy behind them that's creating a new karma. Would that energy have happened had not those 17 souls died? I don't think so. So were those 17 souls victims, or were they just completing some karmas? Now this is really key. You have to let go of your judgment and realize that everything is always perfect. Even though it doesn't feel that way, even though it doesn't look that way or smell that way, or you don't hear it being perfect, doesn't taste very good. Your mind can't wrap itself around all of this. And it's hard. It's hard. We're taught from birth to be victims. Terrible things have happened throughout human history. Terrible things. Genocide, all kinds of things. This world has interesting karmas. Just 200 years ago, people hunted the natives down for sport. We have a lot of bad karmas as a nation. Slavery, the things we've done to the indigenous people, the things that we do to each other. So why did you come here during this time? Did you come here just to suffer and die and go out of this life screaming at the horror? Or did you come to do something special? And I believe you came to do something special because you're not a victim. You're an advanced soul. We're all advanced souls. And I know this is a controversial subject, so I expect it to be a lively question and answer period, and I look forward to it. But you create your karmas right now. Every moment you create your karmas. How do you look at things? Why do you look at it that way? So go back to the beginning. If we can find it. Hang on a minute. I've got to raise the energy here a little bit. Good. Better. In the Zen paintings, In Search of the Ox, there are, I think, 9 paintings I recall. And they show the evolution of the awakening process. The first one, in that series of pictures, the ox represents your spiritual nature, the awareness of your spiritual nature. And in the first picture, the guy's doing his business, and the ox is way behind him, looking behind this building at him. Just see the head of the ox looking at him. And this is where most people are. They never really are that aware of their spiritual nature. They're too busy caught up in politics or you know, sex, drugs, rock and roll, and even religion can take you away, but religion's not so bad, but politics definitely. Sports. So in that one, he's not aware. These are people that go to church twice a year, or the mosque, or they just go every once in a while on a holiday because they're expected to. And then that's it. They're not interested in spirituality at all. Not a bit. But then in the second picture, he sees the ox. Oh, he has a little awakening. Maybe he starts chasing it then. That's the third picture. He starts chasing the ox. And as he's chasing this ox, that's where we as spiritual aspirants start going to, different churches or different synagogues or different things. We try to find different ways of how do I find the spiritual thing going on? So he's searching it. And he's chasing it, chasing after it, and then he catches it. He finds the group that speaks to him. He finds a sangha or a spiritualist group or whatever that causes him to focus on his spiritual nature more than anything. And the next picture is taming that ox. This is what, he's got the ox by the rope and he's leading it. I'm meditating 90 minutes in the morning, I'm meditating 90 minutes at night, I'm wearing the right clothes, I'm eating the right food, I'm going to be spiritual, he's beating his, he's just really going after this ox. He wants to tame it. He's very enthusiastic. He or she becomes obsessed with it. And then the next picture is riding the ox. This is where we quit beating it. Suddenly, instead of meditating 90 minutes in the morning and 90 minutes at night and doing all this stuff and dressing certain ways or whatever, you have a breakthrough and you realize that you are not a physical being having a spiritual experience, but rather you're a spiritual being having a physical experience. And you just start to surrender into that. See where spirit is going to take you. So you see the picture of him riding the ox and he's playing his flute. There's even a more traditional one where he's riding the ox and his back is on the back of the ox and he's playing the flute as he sees the buildings and the trees go above. He does not care where the ox takes him. He is following spirit no matter what. The picture out of that is samadhi, nothing. It's just a plain white picture. Everything's gone. Dissolved away. All karmas, everything gone. No past, no present, no future. Gone. No up, no down, no in, no out. Gone. No one. Gone. And then in the next picture is contemplation. He's sitting and he's thinking. He's still alive. He still has a body. But the interesting thing about that picture is that there's no ox in it because he has become the ox. Now what? You're not dead yet. So in the last picture, he's in the marketplace. He's going through the marketplace just like I went through that restaurant. Everything is going on all about him. All kinds of things are happening. Confusion, clamor, suffering, people creating bad karma for themselves because they're ignorant. And here's this monk walking through, seeing God in everything. The kids come up, he hands them candy out of his bowl. He goes over and he touches the old man who's dying and he has a little compassion, sits next to him. He goes to the family that's having trouble with their kids, sits down and visits with them a little bit. He goes to the people who've lost everything and he encourages them. Life isn't over, it's just changed. He's a monk, alleviating suffering, dispelling ignorance, living in the marketplace, but not becoming angry, not becoming an agitator, not becoming anything. He's just a monk. Because everything's been dissolved. Some of these are very difficult to get beyond. I know that I'm talking about a subject matter that many people don't want to hear. A friend of mine's a Paiute Indian. There's a history. There's a view of our government, of this world. So what can we do? There will never be any world peace outside of you. There's never going to be any world peace there until there's world peace inside of you. So those things inside of you that are causing you to become upset and angry, to become enraged even, and there's plenty out there to do that, believe me. But when you become enraged and self-righteous, you have become part of the problem. You have been the man that says, I hate murderers, I need to kill anybody who kills. If you think about that. And that attitude pulls you into a state of mind that will attract to you people who think that way. Or if we're fearful of something, that state of mind will pull that fear to us because we think that way. It's karma. My question is, does it bring you peace? If your reaction to something is making you upset, then I suggest that you're creating some bad karma. You're part of the problem. So how do you become part of the solution? Well, that's the good thing. The good thing is what Christ taught and what all spiritual teachers teach, really, and that's to be selfless. In Buddhism, they call it bodhisattva. To be a bodhisattva. To see God in everything, to express compassion, to express selflessness, to give of yourself without reserve, to do the right thing, create good karma. You quit doing the bad karmas, you quit getting into those states of mind that make you angry or upset or pissed off or self-righteous or vengeful. Get rid of those states of mind and replace them with another state of mind of compassion and love and selfless giving until that becomes your focus. And when that becomes your focus, you quit doing this. And when you quit doing this, you quit experiencing that. It's still there, but it's not your problem. It's cliche. The answer is love. It's always been that. Love is inclusive. Love brings things in. Love forgives. Love seeks a better way. It's not puffed up inside itself. Look at me, I'm loving more than everybody. No, it's just very gentle, very humble. You're going through the marketplace. You are the enlightened being in your world. How are you going to deal with all of these circumstances that are hitting you in the face all the time? Death, disease, poverty, incredible violence, what seems to be a lot of inhumanity and crime. How do you do that? How can you go through a world that's this painful and this awful and find love? Sita, could you look up All These Worlds? It's on the Tantra album. Not the Tantra, the Techno Zen Master. When you realize that every sentient being is its own world, its own universe, that none of us are the same, none of us are even close to being the same, that even though I viewed that restaurant from my point of view, nobody in that restaurant, including the waiter, saw it anything close to what I was seeing, any more than I could see that room completely as the old man who was dying, or the people who lost all of their money, or the young lady in front of me who's really going through some emotional stuff over a relationship. How do you see through all of that? So my teacher created this song. Okay?
I asked the Zen master, what is Zen? He said, all these worlds are shining in my mind.
C'est le mouvement de la vie. Un clin d'œil.
He said, all these worlds. All these worlds. He said, all these worlds are shining in my mind. All these worlds. He said, all these worlds are shining in my mind. He said it as well. He said it as well. He said it as well.
C'est le mouvement de la vie. Jesus.
What is Zen?
Es ist die Bewegung eines Lebens in einem Moment.
I asked the Zen master, what is Zen?
Alles kommt in einem Moment.
What is Zen?
C'est être à l'état pur. Clin d'œil.
What is Zen?
C'est le mouvement de la vie. Clin d'œil.
said all these words. He said all these words are shining in his mind. All these words. All these words. He said all these words are shining in his mind. All these words. He said all these words. All these words are shining. All these words are shining in his mind. He said it is love. He said it is love. He said it is love.
So, the task is to do the right thing, and that's to quit creating bad karma by doing good karma, what we would say the Dharma. Although I guess technically everything's the Dharma, but we're kind of getting into words here. But I'm suggesting that what you do and how you approach life and how you deal with people, how you deal with these circumstances that pop up in your life and you feel so compelled that you need to do something, I understand that. And if you feel that from your heart, you can do it, but always remember that it has to come from a sense of peace and love. Otherwise, you're just being part of the problem. You're just continuing to create bad karma. It's been said, I was never so wrong as when I was so right. Atrocities and great suffering has happened in this world by people who were so right about their point of view. We had the Inquisition, in Christian. They were torturing people, the horrible tortures. This world is, you've got to have love, you've got to have a sense of compassion, and you have to have it inside yourself. And it comes from you because it is your true nature to be that way. You've been taught otherwise. You've been raised in a family and in a society that, in a race or whatever, you've had all of these different things given to you in this life that define you. I'll repeat that. You've been given all of these things from family, friends, society, your race, your economic stature, your education, your experiences, all of these things have been given to you, and now you're doing something with it, with an attitude. So you meditate just for 20, 30 minutes in the morning. You meditate, and in those 20 or 30 minutes, you may have 2 or 3 moments where you actually stop everything. But even if it's just 30 seconds, that 30 seconds makes such a change in your life that you're starting to break break this solid view of reality up. Just by stopping your thought for a few seconds or a few minutes, you're starting to break up that view of reality and get another idea that's coming from a higher source that wasn't given to you by people who are unenlightened, in a society that's unenlightened, in a world that seems to be pretty unenlightened. And now you're in this world and you're creating something new for yourself. Peace, joy, love, expansion. So good. Wow. What a controversial subject, this karma thing. Any questions, concerns, complaints, criticisms? I'm open. Anything you have to say will be of use to someone.
When you recognize you have a situation that's caused by karma,
Yeah.
you clear that with love, stay in that.
Well, yeah, you have to go back and say, why am I in this situation? What created this? What were the elements involved? And what put you there in the first place? And then the way to get through it is to forgive people. I've had a group of people who have basically chased me down on the inner planes for over 20 years. They really don't like me. And I spent 20 years fighting them back, calling them names, criticizing them, putting them down. And then last week, I saw that everything that I said about them, the words that I was using about them, were almost exactly the same words they were using for me. So how do I stop it? Well, I can't stop them. But what I can do is I can stop me. So what I started doing is, even though in the past these are enemies of mine, I did a strange thing. I actually did what Christ said to do. I started praying for them. I started seeing them until they started to shine in my mind. These were people who've been torturing me inwardly. And it started shining in my mind, letting go of it. They are doing what they're doing because they're caught up in ignorance. They're caught up in the karmas of the world that they're around. They don't see anything else. They only feel that. But I have to stop it. I can't stop them. But if I stop it in me, if they take a swing at me and there's nothing there, no one gets hit. The only way I can do it is to love them and to forgive them. And when they come after me, just not be there. Because I never was there. I'm not that person they think I am. But as long as I identify with that person of who they think I am, then I have something to defend. And I know I'm not.
So you switch home base to third base and they can't find you. So
Pretty much, yeah. You have to heal yourself. There's a reason you're reacting to people who are tormenting you. And that's what you have to heal in you. Those elements, those energies are always, it's a universe. So a lot of energies here. But the reason that I've attracted these individuals or these circumstances into my life is because of my karma. And my karma has been created because I was given a description of the world from my parents, from society, from my race, from my language. I could go on and on and on about all the things that have created my reality. But I am looking at this now and realizing that it is my reality. Am I going to accept the one that was given to me, or am I going to seek something that will bring me peace? Because I know as long as I'm fighting, I'm never going to have peace. As long as I'm resisting, then I can't have inclusion. But I can bring my consciousness up to a higher level. Scripture says, the meek shall inherit the earth. It doesn't mean you're weak. It's misunderstood. Meek is strength. You're the adult. The 4-year-old thinks that you took his toy. Boy, he's coming up. He's so angry. He's coming, his fists are flying, his feet are kicking, he's trying to bite you. How do you deal with this? Well, you can get down on your knees so you're at the same level and punch him out. Not a good response. But what the adult does is you reach down and you grab and you turn so they can't hurt themselves or hurt you, and you hold them until it stops. You have to turn them inside of yourself. Meekness is strength with restraint, with wisdom. To get down on your knees so you're at your same level as them and punch them out, bad karma. And it has predictable results. You know, you're in jail. Yeah. So it's your job to forgive. It's not their job to forgive, that's their karma. It's your job to forgive, and in your own way remove yourself from that circumstance as much as you can, but we face everything directly. If someone hates us, we don't retreat, we don't go forward, we sit still. And we start watching ourselves. What part of me wants to slap their face? What part of me wants to, what's this? What part of me wants to cry right now? What part of me, I look at these different things inside of me, my different reactions, and I notice that if I don't deal with those consciously, I deal with them unconsciously, which is never good. Does that make any sense to you?
You can unconsciously create karma.
We do it all the time. That's why the world is like it is. People just go around and they take the description of the world they were given, and then they just act, thinking that it's the correct way. I was raised in the South. I know what white power is. I know why we're doing this. Why? They're doing it out of ignorance. There's no self-awareness there. There's no enlightenment happening. They're just reacting and creating a world that by the law of attraction brings others into it, and because they're angry and fighting, the law of attraction brings people in that will fight them or whatever. It just never ends. Where does it end? It ends inside of you. You stop it. Quit fighting. Sit yourself in the square and burn yourself up. Stop it. Better yet, sit on your cushion and burn yourself up. What are you hanging on to anyway? Your family, your world, all of this is going to go away. All of it. Imagine this. What will you be if, let's say, 20 minutes from now, the sun suddenly goes into supernova, where it becomes bigger than the solar system. Everything inside the solar system is completely vaporized. Immediately. No human history, no Buddha, no Christ, no nothing. All gone. You're gone, but you're still alive. You're going to reincarnate. That's what we do. Throughout eternity, we will reincarnate. You'll never die. Ever. So then when you realize you're never going to die, even if the world goes away and the whole solar system goes away, you're still going to be around, incarnating in, Ursula Major or someplace like that. But you're going to be around. You cannot die. But your world that you have created in this life is definitely going to die. It'll die when you die. But then you'll just create another one. But if we move up a notch or two in every incarnation, where we learn to replace anger with selfless giving, with compassion, with love, when we avoid violence, we promote peace. We're doing things that create a better world for ourselves. This world is an incredible intersection in the dimensions of spirit. All of the heaven worlds, all of the beautiful, most incredible heaven worlds are right here on this planet. And all of the hell worlds, the terrible, horrible gnashing of teeth and everything else, also found right here on this planet, right next to it. They're just all here on this planet. And your consciousness, when you raise your consciousness, you become aware of the heaven worlds. And if you lower your consciousness, you start dwelling in the hell worlds. And that's the consciousness. What are you doing with yourself? Are you just going on automatic and saying, I've never liked, I've never liked those Chinese people. You just can't trust them. Where does all of that come from? Right? Where does this racism come from? Where does this national stuff come from? Who are you? What are you? Is a better question. And I suggest you're not who you think you are. Not even close. That you've had lifetimes in many, many different types of societies and races and religions, one after the other. But who are you? And the way I see it is that you're basically living out a program. You get your little laptop crashes. So you got to get another one. So you go and you buy another laptop, and it has in it a program, maybe Microsoft Word, but it has no data. You have QuickBooks, but it has no data. It's just programs. The limitation of those programs are what you have. But when you import the data into it, you start filling up those data points, now you have all of your stuff. And every lifetime you come in with a program, and it's filled up karmically with the stuff you need to work on. So people that you hated in a past life, could be your brother or sister, or your parent, could be your cousin, your husband, your wife, your child. Karma has set it up, you have to work it out with them. And you don't, so you do it again. The program is there. Every time we do this program, while we're in it, we can adjust it a little bit. I can move from anger and outrage into love and compassion and forgiveness. When I do that, I have changed the program, and I now have a different experience of life. I know I have a magical experience of life. Walk down the street. It's so magical. Oh my word. The trees, the sky. Today I was overlooking the ocean on this outcropping of rock, looking at the beautiful beach below, birds flying. What a magical moment. There are other people walking right by that were talking about the basketball game. That's their world. because they're in that karma, that's where their consciousness is. But when you start to awaken and you start putting away those things that do harm, putting away those things that don't work for you, and start doing something new, as Christ suggested, it's the good news. So it's tough, especially if you were raised as a fighter, or if you were raised as a person who doesn't take shit off of anybody. And that attitude locks you into violence. It locks you into all kinds of stuff. There's no peace there. So, that's maybe, did that answer your question or even come close? Anything that's still sticking you?
No, it's good. It's just you can layer it with too many aspects and not get back to the basics of it.
Okay, what if you just remove the layers and look at the basics?
Yeah. And then wait for it to go away.
Well, just expand onto it, you know. You're experiencing this because you think that you're separate.
What if you don't want to be united with those that cause you harm? That makes you separate?
Well, basically,
Oh, I see what you're saying. It all comes from the same soup.
yeah. It's tough though when it hurts. It's tough when things happen and it hurts you, especially in your heart. And it's instinctive to cover your heart and to push the pain away. So you have to raise your consciousness above the way that you've dealt with it before. You can't deal with it under the old operating system because it just creates more problems. And it doesn't give you any rest. And it keeps you angry and upset. And that keeps you from progressing. Now, how can this work in the future? Well, I can tell you, my friend, once you kind of get a handle on this and you start working it, you start forgiving yourself and forgiving others and shoring up those ego things inside of you that say this is how it's supposed to be, and if it's not that way, you've got to, you know, whatever. When you stop all of that, down the road, you will be in this restaurant, and there will be a man over there going through what you're going through and you've gone through for the last 20 years, but now you've got something to say. You've got something to offer. If nothing more than just a touch on the hand. What could anyone do that would cause you to let go of your pain and your anger?
Something compassionate, I guess.
Yeah, selfless giving, compassionate. And see, I know you because, I think I do anyway, I don't know anybody really, but I've watched you do compassionate things for people. For children, for people who are sick, for people who are in trouble. I've watched you go out of your way to help them. That's how you get out. You start doing more and more. What are you doing? You know, Scripture says, don't place your treasures upon the earth where the worms and the rust and the thieves can take it away. But place your treasures upon the divine, where it can't be taken or stolen from you. Your acts of compassion, your acts of love, your acts of selfless giving will take you out of that. Because the intention of that is you're not fighting anymore. You're not resisting anymore. You're just giving, 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 constantly giving. Any other questions? It's a pretty controversial thing. I'm sure I'm push some buttons somewhere. Yes?
How can we know whether the events or experiences we're having are bad karma or good karma? Do feelings help identify that? If we can do it or bad? Or
Because it's bad karma. How do we know if what we've done is bad or good karma? Yeah, if you can give the I and place you in front of the other person, usually a pretty good sign. If what you're doing makes you upset, if it makes you angry, if it makes you sick, if it creates chaos around, if it's always focused on something that's kind of awful, you spend your days looking at videos of people torturing animals and stuff like that, you're going to have bad karma. That's what it is. It takes you into that area. What you touch is you. You always remember that. What you touch touches you. As you quit touching these things and you start touching something else, instead you replace it. You're replacing the anger with compassion. You're replacing the anger with love. You have to replace it with something. There's a method of dealing with negativity in Tibetan Buddhism. I think it's called Tonglen, I'm not sure, being an American. But the idea is this, that in your high heart, that's part of your heart that is in touch with the infinite, that is just completely unconditional love. That you take in when somebody's coming to you with this, or you're being faced with this horrible, horrible negative energy. All of these kids being killed, oh my God, and you see the terror and the anger and the outrage and the suffering and the grief. And it just goes on and on. Oh man, that hurts so bad. If I focus on them creating bad karma. So what I do is I look at it, and all of that darkness, all of that rage, all of that black, oily, negative, gunky, demon-possessed, whatever you want to call it, all of that energy, this is Tibetan for you. You breathe it in, you bring it in, and you put it in your heart, right there, in that unconditional part, not lower, but right there in that unconditional, and you breathe out and you fill that space that you breathe that in, you fill that space with love. Because when it comes into this unconditional thing, it starts to transform. It can't, that darkness can't stand the light. That's why you have to be in high heart. So you breathe it in, and then you breathe out love in its place. Whew. So as I'm watching the terrible events on television, I breathe all of that in. And I breathe out love. I just fill that whole space with love. Ooh, it's still there. Breathe it in. Fill it with love. Good karma. It's an interesting technique because we are raised not to bring anything negative into us, especially don't bring any negative stuff into our heart. But at the higher levels of awareness, you realize that the heart has 3 levels. I've talked about it many times. But you get up to the high heart, there are no conditions. It's going to love no matter what. No matter who, it's going to love. And whatever's kept there will be vibrated up into light, because it's high heart. So you're taking this experience and these people or whatever, and you breathe it in. It's so, we'll get this space, I've got to fill it with love. So you might try that. Other questions? Okay. For those of you that are watching this, I'm sure you have some questions. Maybe you're outraged at this point. Email me. Be happy to talk to you. Absolutely. Good. So we'll have one more meditation. And in this meditation, I want you to look at this world and your view of this world. And I want you to breathe it into your heart, and then I want you to fill that space with love. Even if you think very good of this world, I want you to breathe it into your heart and just fill that space with love throughout this meditation. Okay? Very good. Thank you, and namaste.